Hey everyone, how's it going? This is Kalen with my official episode 1 of the Umbrella of Jank podcast. And if you didn't listen to the pilot, that's perfectly okay. I was just mostly getting a feel for how it would be to talk for kind of an hour, I would say. Um, so this episode, I kind of just wanted to do an introduction, kind of a formal introduction. If you're new to me, uh, hi, my name is Kalen. Um, this is gonna be kind of a podcast of kind of things that fall under the umbrella of nerdy stuff. And the pilot was just kind of me blabbing on about Magic the Gathering, which is something I really enjoy and like, but I kind of want to go on like a more broad spectrum of stuff to talk about, not just Magic, because I know everyone who may listen to this just isn't into that. You know, there's going to be lots of various stuff that people enjoy. And so for this introduction, um, I guess we'll just start with like the bases of uh, I'm I'm technically from the South, like Oklahoma, Texas, and I lived down there for pretty much the majority of my childhood, and I grew up in a uh, like Christian household per se, outside of being with my mom mostly and the guy she married. That wasn't really like Christiany, I guess, if you want to call it. But living with my grandparents, that was like very much religious. So I kind of grew up with that in my background, and the majority of my family like had claimed to be Christian, so it was kind of a common theme in my life for a while there. And so growing up, I pretty much bounced back and forth between living in Texas and living in Wisconsin for one reason or another. It was either because my mom had issues with uh, like actually being a parent and letting me live with her because she had personal problems and it made me as a child hard to live with a parent with issues. And we all have our issues here and there, but it just wasn't like healthy to live with uh, someone like that. If you want to say that, I guess. Um, so like most of my childhood, teenage years were all in Texas. There was like from age 1 to 5 was in Texas, and then from like ages 7 to 9 was in Texas for me, and then from ages 13 to 18 was in Texas, and those years that weren't in Texas, I was up here in Wisconsin for one reason or another, living with other family members and just because of how things happened. So I didn't really have a normal childhood per se. I think the most normal part of my life was the ages between 14 and then I would say 17. I had that high school experience. I had, a few girlfriends here and there. Not at all at once. I wasn't that kind of guy. I was kind of the enclosed, nerdy guy that tried to be like the blend in with the goth kids, but I ended up getting involved with some high schoolers that were into this weird thing where they all thought they were wolves in human form. And like there was a girl in this group of friends of mine that tried to convince me that um, I was some demon fox that had killed their family, and but they caused me to have amnesia because one of the girls in this group was in love with me. And I mean, it was a girl that I was dating at the time, so it was like whatever. It's high school. People are fucking weird in high school. Um, and at that time, I was just mostly into like the Yu-Gi-Oh card game, and I played a shit ton of video games that I can't really do anymore. Being older, um, uh, I had a pretty stable, life with my mom up until she lost her job for one reason or another, and then got involved with some idiot that was a druggie. So that was up until that point. It was pretty much fine. Um, your typical teenage uh, life, getting involved with girls and doing stupid shit. I didn't really do drugs or I didn't do drink at an early age, so there's that. I remember being introduced to smoking actually when I was 10 or 11. I maybe it was 9 or 10. I don't remember exactly. I just remember that um, my mom and I were living in some apartment complexes up here in Wisconsin, and a next door neighbor had she had a, a kid my age. So moms do what moms do. Oh, get our kids to play together and be friends. So that was the thing. The kid was a total asshole. He stole from me. He tried to get me to smoke a cigarette. Uh, there was a time where we hung out with some. I vaguely remember this, but there was these group of people he was friends with that I think they were trying to do like Ouija board shit, and like I think one of the girls was like weird. I could be like remembering all this uh like incorrectly, but I mean as a 9 or 10 year old, and you have like some girl hitting on you. I mean, I don't know what I'm doing. So, there was laying there coughing all night because I had just tried to smoke. So that was terrible. And then there was being like involved with some girls that were trying to do Ouija board stuff. So, the kid was overall an asshole, and other than stealing from me multiple times, and he just never admitted to it. And my mom thought I was crazy. I think I don't think she ever believed me about it. The stuff went missing, because he lived right across the hallway and came over a bunch. And all I was trying to do was play, you know, uh, my PlayStation and be a kid, I guess. Um, So yeah, about pretty much about like 11 or so, I moved in with my grandparents because my mom just got unstable, and uh, and then I couldn't really live with my grandparents because the school I was going to, like all the kids there were like, I don't know, very very mean, and just the school I went to was not. Um, Sorry, I'm gonna get off on a tangent here. At the time being that you hear this, um, you may or may not hear loud truck noises in the background. Because I'll be real with you guys, I don't have a great mic at the moment. I should be getting one soon. But on top of that, I also live by a highway. So um, the noise from the highway is pretty aggravating. I will be real with you. And so that's just what the background noise is. Um, but anyways, um, yeah, I just couldn't live with my grandparents. There's nothing against them. It's just the school they had put me in was not good for me. So I ended up going and living with my aunt and uncle, and they homeschooled me for a year, and then put me into public school for seventh grade, and so here's the cool part about living with my aunt and uncle is that I had met these two kids that lived across the street with their mom, and I became friends with them, and when we played together or whatever, I think uh, I'm not sure how it came about, but we all ended up making like what would now be this novel that I wrote called Wages of Chaos. And I remember like writing pretty much like what would be considered the prequel for Wages of Chaos. I do not remember exactly what it was other than like bits and pieces, so it would be hard to recreate what I wrote. And I don't have like any copies of what I had written. So unfortunately, I don't know like 100% of what the hell we were doing, but I just remember like taking it with me when I moved back to my mom, and I kind of developed what would be Wages of Chaos. Um, and so from that, um, I kind of was able to write more of it when I moved. I ended up moving again when I was 18 and running away actually from my mom to go live with my family member in Missouri, of all places. So in Missouri, my cousin had owned a house, and a bunch of cool guys actually were living there and renting from him. And what ended up happening is I kind of like I had fallen out of Christianity for a while there. Um, just no interest at all. I had, I was fooling around with girls. Just, I wasn't like into anything crazy, or, I wasn't insane, or just the thought of religion or whatever just was not on my mind, you know? And as an 18-year-old or 17-year-old, technically, so by the time I got there, I had been living with him and his friends at the house or his roommates for for a little bit, and I was still kind of like interested in talking to girls, and who's not interested in talking to girls for real. Uh, I just for other reasons, not just communication purposes. Let's just put it that way. Uh, uh, and so, unfortunately, I had to break it off with the girl that I had just left in Texas. There was unfortunately another girl that would come in and out of my life constantly, especially like as of this year. And but there was like a fling kind of thing that I managed to get myself involved with, and it was a one and done deal, and I left her, and I think I I remember. So if any girls are listening to this is really douchebag of me to have done this, but I remember living with my cousin and his roommates. Since like that household was very like religious and like hardcore Christianity, they were like the guys that you shouldn't be talking to girls unless you're dating them. And they were like very on to me about who you talking to, is it a girl? And I still had my phone for a while there before I ended up my cousin ended up putting me through this Christian camp thing that at the time I had a lot of fun and I made a lot of friends, and um it helped me with a lot of things that I needed help with. At the end of the day, that's all that matters, really, is I got through a bunch of stuff that I'd been dealing with since leaving Texas. And so, yeah, just talking to girls in this household was living in was not really a thing. And it was kind of weird to me because it's like these are all straight men, but, you know, talking to girls is like the last thing on their mind. And it was like I was living with a bunch of monks, basically. But, it was for other reasons. It was like, oh, uh, we, we can't be distracted by talking to girls. And, to be fair, you know, fooling around with a bunch of girls at the end of the day, just, I don't, like, I really don't see myself doing it anymore. Um, like, at my age, like, I haven't been with someone since, like, 2015, for example. And so, but when I was in high school, I had a new girlfriend like every fucking month or so. So it wasn't like, um, nothing had changed really, other than being in this new environment and kind of getting back into the Christian scenery and doing all that stuff and going through this program that it was useful. It wasn't like a complete waste of time. Um I made some, like I said, I made some new friends and dealt with stuff. Um so basically there was a weird incident where during during that uh, thing I was doing. So real quick, the girl that came in and out of my life. Her name's Miranda, and for whatever reason, I I always thought she was like someone I was supposed to be with. You know, I'd only been with her for a month in Texas. But I always believed that I was supposed to be with her later on in life just because of this like weird connection we had. And we always ended up back in each other's life, you know, every so often. Excuse me. Oh man, excuse me. And so this girl Miranda, I, you know, she's in Texas. I hadn't really talked to her since I left Texas, and then I'm going through this Christian program thing through the big church down there in Missouri called International House of Prayer. There's this girl in there, and I'm freaking out the entire time because I think this girl is Miranda, and like I can't really like concentrate on what we're supposed to be doing. You know, I'm trying to like do the prayer stuff and whatever, like concentrate on other things, and this girl is there and she looks exactly like Miranda, and I'm just like I don't know what's going on. So, I mean, I ended up talking to someone that I trusted with the whole thing and like told them my connection with this girl, and I don't know how I was seeing this completely different person, and it was like a doppelganger, if you want to call it that. So I mean, after talking with it and realizing that this person wasn't Miranda and that I don't need to be freaking out about it, um, I don't know what that was, but I mean, eventually I was able to talk to this girl and realize, wow, you don't look like Miranda. You're nothing like her. Great. So, just out of my mind there. Uh, and then it didn't really help that there was like a couple of girls that liked me. Um, there was there was a goofy goofy girl. I find that I feel like she really liked me, but because of us being in this church program thing, it was like, no, you can't do, you can't date. Basically, it was one of those things. And this other girl that I had met that wasn't in the program, um, I ended up liking, and it was crazy. And I don't know what exactly happened, but um, she was like the first non-white girl that I liked, and was kind of like it was kind of a mutual thing. And she turned out that she was, you know, half Native American, half Hispanic, and um, I don't know, just something about her made me really like her. And so the entire time that I had lived there, we were pretty much in this relationship secretly, right? And it was funny because my cousin, who was my legal guardian at the time, somehow made it to where I couldn't date. And then her parents didn't want her dating at the time, which I I think I ended up finding out that was complete BS. But I just remember it being funny that we were, you know, in this relationship, and no one knew, maybe except for like a friend of ours and her sister. And I just remember like leaving for the holidays and coming back, and she like she was really excited to see me, and I was not. I don't know. I don't know what happened, but I came back and I wasn't really paying attention to anyone. Uh, and I remember her being upset that I wasn't paying attention to anything or anyone. I was kind of like in this daydream. Um, and I think it was partially because I was obsessed with the new Flyleaf album that came out, and I'd been listening to that pretty much nonstop since I had gotten it. And unfortunately, when I came back, that's kind of when I would say my perfect little life there in Missouri fell apart. Because, you know, I didn't mind being in this like super Christian environment with IHOP being like the church that I went to. Um, like I just remember enjoying like every bit of that lifestyle. Now I don't know how long I could enjoy it for, because eventually the relationship I was in with this girl was going to get found out and probably get busted, and probably end for the worse, in all honesty. So my it was a fantasy land, if you want to call it that. I had all these great friends. It was probably like the best time of my life, even if it was for 9 months. Uh, Most of probably 6 months, really, because the first few months were just kind of like settling in and getting my bearings together from being in Texas, and getting out of that lifestyle. So, say what you want about Christianity or religion or whatever. Uh, that was probably like the best part of my life. Um, and I kind of wish I had, was able to stay there and continue living that life that I was in. But unfortunately, when I came back from the holiday break from visiting family up in Wisconsin, uh, well, I found myself coming back to Wisconsin because my cousin, and I'm gonna be blunt with you guys. I still don't understand to this day, like, what exactly happened. But I remember being in the car with my cousin, and like he said he had missed me and he wanted to hang out with me. That's understandable. But I all I was thinking about was the girl I hadn't seen in a while, and all my friends that would be hanging out at the church. And I kind of just wanted to go see them and hang out with them because for once I had like a decent group of friends that all liked me. Yeah. Who doesn't enjoy that? So because I chose my friends over my cousin, uh, he he all of a sudden like had a gigantic fit, and based off my choice to hang out with them versus him or over him, uh, he said that I needed to uh, move or or get a job because I guess he was done. He was done with me or whatever. And well, things just kind of fell apart there, and he ended up dropping me off um, at the church, and I remember like panicking and calling my grandma and calling Sean and um, or my other cousin, which his name was Sean. Well, that's out of the bag. I remember panicking and calling those family members and talking to my friends about what the hell just happened. And so I just remember like, having to eventually say goodbye to everyone, and within like the week or so I was pretty depressed about that whole thing that just transpired, and here we are. He's you know going to drop me off at uh, my cousin's place up here in Madison, Wisconsin, or some Prairie, Wisconsin, and so I hadn't lived in Wisconsin again since I was uh, like since I was between 10 and uh, 13. So uh, pretty much living with my other cousin and his family wasn't too bad. Um, Unfortunately, not being amongst my friends in IHOP and not being in. So let me give you like a quick synopsis of what living around the International House of Prayer was. Constantly, you were surrounded by 24 hours of like just people being involved in like this active mode of praying constantly, and just there was always something going on, and you kind of just fell out of doing normal stuff, I guess, and it was like all focused on like just praying and reading the Bible and stuff. So it was, that term spiritual, yeah, excuse me, spiritual high. I can't talk. That's basically what it was. It was a spiritual high constantly living in that area. So that's basically what I was in. And so I kind of came down from heaven per se when I moved up to live with my uncle or with my other cousin and his family. I was no longer in that constant high. Uh, and that's basically all it turned out to be. There wasn't a lot of foundation with my Christianity there, because despite being like, you know, religious and stuff, I basically just kind of like went back to screwing around with uh someone in the high school I was going to, and then eventually I ended up somehow getting into a really toxic relationship with this 20 something year old girl that was, a lot older than me at the time. All right, there's a giant diesel on the main road. That was random. Basically, just like she was very attractive, and how she was into me, I don't know. I think just because, not to like be cocky or anything, but I feel as a teenager and my, you know, uh, uh, until I was like 21, I think I actually looked really good and I was not a fucking whale. So, there, I think that pretty much like established this weird attract, being attractive, should I say. Um, and so, I don't know, I got into a relationship with this 20 something year old girl, and it was pretty much hell. Like, we screwed around and stuff, but it was pretty much not a good idea to be involved with her, even though at the time I didn't care, because you know man, I was with an old girl. Like, this is fun. That's pretty much all I cared about. So it was crazy because the person I was living with and his family, um, like, they didn't want anything to do with my relationship with this girl. So they kind of forced me to move because, for whatever reason, they took it upon themselves to make my life like a part of their life, even though it wasn't really their life. It was just like, oh, you're living with us, this is also affecting us too, which, I mean, whatever, they weren't my parents. They were just like, they were letting me live with them, and so being with this girl was stressing them out. Mainly only because of the guy she was with, she was still friends with, and he was jealous, and he had anger issues, and he just would he hated me, and he constantly like complained to my cousin, and so it was very like, it had a lot of tension, and there was a lot of stress. But I mean, at the end of the day, I was like with a really hot girl that was a lot older than me. So that's all I cared about, I guess. uh, I guess you could say I turned out, I was turning into this like selfish douchebag being with her. And so we ended up living together down in Janesville, Wisconsin. At first with my mom. My mom had moved up to Janesville at some point in time, after realizing that, oh, I don't live with her anymore, and so I guess she ended up getting moved by some people and ended up living in Janesville. I don't even remember how that happened, but uh, there she was, and so we're living with her for a little bit, and then we got our own place, and so uh, I remember that, like, halfway through our lease, uh, she broke up with me, and but we still have to live there, because the lease wasn't up. So since I'm like free to do whatever, and I'm still like at least somewhat charming, uh, I I tried to get involved with this tall blonde girl that I don't even know how she was attracted to me, but somehow I I got like some tall blonde girl to fall for me. So that was fun. I'm surprised we didn't do anything other than like, the normal make out stuff. But I guess, like, I'm just gonna be blunt, we didn't screw around. And unfortunately for me, I will say that. Uh, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's fine because she pretty much like fell out of like sh- like she didn't really stay attractive, and she got married to some abusive person and had kids, and then she became a cop. You know, which is cool because I remember her studying forensic science and all that stuff, and so she's not even a cop anymore. And excuse me. And yeah, I've found myself trying to talk to her a couple times here and there, but she's just like a mess, and she, uh, I'm just like, wow, this is not the same person that I that I was making out with in high school. But you know, time changes people, and here we are, 10 years later, doing who the fuck knows with our lives. I'm I'm in overnight freight, and these girls that I was chasing, I don't know what half of them are doing anymore. Um, but yeah, I'd end up pretty much leaving Janesville to go live with uh, like a family friend that was friends with um, my cousin that I was living with in the beginning here when I moved to Wisconsin again. And so he helped this family friend of ours and myself to move into these apartments and where he was going to co-sign. And so I ended up getting a shitty job at the local Target down the street, and that wasn't all that fun. The only good time that I had living there was I that was when I turned 21, and I remember uh, I had I was able to buy a PS3, and I just played Final Fantasy 13 for the first time. And that was pretty much my favorite game. Um, and so Final Fantasy 13 was pretty much like a huge distraction for me, and I unfortunately couldn't like get involved with a girl there because I was trying to like date around, but the closest girl I came to dating was someone I'd worked with at Target, and this chick was cool, and like we liked each other and stuff, and then all of a sudden she just ghosted me out of nowhere. Like nobody explained to me what happened, and I still to this day don't know what happened. Um uh but yeah, I after after living with this family friend, I ended up moving in with some friends that was friends with a friend of mine. Too many friends of friends. I just was gonna live with them for a little bit because I had planned on doing this, getting back into the church lifestyle, and there was like a program that I was gonna do in a church that I used to attend for like 9 months, and you know, um, again, another fun. I enjoyed my time in this church program because I made some friends. Did a lot of cool things. I traveled to New York, Louisiana, um, New York, Louisiana. Uh, Went to Chicago a lot. Um, I traveled and I made some cool friends, and um, I thought some of the girls that I was doing this program with liked me, but you know that didn't end up being the case. But it's whatever. Uh, I kind of like after that thing was done, they moved back to where they came from, and I didn't stop talking to them pretty much. Again, this religious high thing, and then we come back to reality, and we're all living normal lives, and I'm going to work. I'm working at Home Depot for a shitty wage and living with some guy friends of mine, and basically I did that for about 2 years after the program, and ended up bouncing to this um, house that I found with a bunch of stupid college students in downtown Madison. And just because, like, the pastor had owned the house I was living at, and uh, I found out that he had basically lied to me about why he wanted me to move out. And the original idea was um, the guys and myself would move out of this house so that he could use it for, church purposes or whatever. And that's fine. You that it made sense to me. And then I found out that pretty much later on that it wasn't for anything church related. It was because the he needed the household for his daughter who was getting married to this dude, and this dude was coming to live in this house that I was living at with these two friends of mine. And the idea was that we hadn't met. Okay, I didn't know this guy. He didn't know me. Was literally kicked out because I was working. I couldn't really attend church all that much. Uh, I couldn't really do church things because of work, just how it was scheduled, because I worked overnights. And they basically assumed that I wouldn't get along with this guy that was moving in that was going to marry his daughter, which is total bullshit, if you ask me. But that was their reasoning, and I had to move. And no one did anything about it. You know, um, I had recently just lost my grandma, and then back in 2009, I had lost my grandpa. So fast forward to 2015, my grandma passed away. I was already dealing with that, know, and so just and then in 2015, I had also I think that was 2014 that my grandmother died. Apologies, as I don't remember exactly. But in 2015, I had gotten involved with uh, a much older woman. Uh, she wasn't like 50 or anything. She was just like 33, and I'm over here. I'm fucking 24 or whatever. And it's just uh, 23, 24, and this 33-year-old is fucking trying to bang me. And she went to the church I went to, and here we are, like getting together and going to Buffalo Wild Wings, and I don't know what happened. I wanted to be like her friend for whatever reason. Um, and then it just kind of like turned into, hey, let's go out for Valentine's Day, and A, B, and C from there. But unfortunately, she dumped me like 3 months later for you know religious reasons, and even though we'd already fucked around, like just religious reasons. Uh, I don't even remember. I just remember like being so fucking destroyed over it. I don't even know why it blew me up so much. Uh, but I didn't. I guess. I guess. Like, to be frank with you guys, I'm not good at confrontation. Um, and I kind of like pulled this recently with someone. I I remember like not even like hearing her out and just kind of leaving because she wanted to talk. She didn't want to like tell me um like right then and there. She wanted to bring me to the coffee shop and let's have breakfast after I got off of work, right? No, she wanted to tell me while we're having a nice breakfast at a coffee shop. Why would you want to break the news of you breaking up with someone at a nice little atmosphere like that? You know, she got me breakfast and she's, doing all this stuff. Normal, it's like business as usual, if you want to put it that way. No, she couldn't just tell me over text or phone or something. I don't know. Like I felt like it was more devastating the way she did it just because it was like I caught me off guard and I didn't even want to hear her out. I fucking left the coffee shop and stormed home. Um so yeah, that was pretty much a disaster. And yeah, I just after that I left the church house that I was living at and went to live with these stupid college students in downtown Madison. And then after that, I went to a music festival in Illinois called Audio Feed. It was a Audio Feed was a branch off of another festival called Cornerstone that had dissolved due to financial reasons. So then Audio Feed was around and they kind of absorbed the Cornerstone fandom. And so it just became all one conglomeration or whatever. So after going there, a friend of mine and his friend needed to live somewhere, and so we all ended up getting a place when we came back from that. And so that was nice. That was about the time I got into Magic the Gathering, and I pretty much played Magic constantly, and I found a game store and got involved with a bunch of people at a game store, and so that was my life for a while, and then I moved on to live on my own. Pretty much, for the past 3 years, I've been living on my own, and now we're just kind of here, doing this COVID thing, and I was going to actually move next year, because that girl I told you about, Miranda, who came in and out of my life constantly. She hopped into my life here and there, um, quite a few times, and then this year she hasn't been doing so well, and I won't really get the details other than she's kind of got into some trouble. Uh, but nonetheless, there was something happening, and we, you know, we decided that we were going to get back together, even if it was going to be, long distance for the time being. I already know this girl, I fucking have known her since I was 16 or so, and so she was pretty much like my best friend, even though it was complicated, if you know what I mean. So I didn't mind having a long distance relationship with her. Um, Unfortunately, she decided to break it off in September or August, I think it was, of this year. So it didn't really last that long. Um, I feel like her excuses to break it off, I didn't want to listen to, you know, and I kind of acted the same way that I did with the last girl that I just mentioned, except this time I was on my way to work when she called me, tell me the news, and my only response was, "Cool, I'll talk to you later," and I hung up. And that's pretty much the last time I had talked to her, unfortunately. I don't know how it would have turned out if I had handled it a different way, but I don't know. I was about to be at work, and I guess I just didn't want to deal with the thought of, great, I'm breaking up with someone again and I have to go to work. So that was fun. Um, I pretty much told her straight out that I didn't want to see or hear from her ever again after that in the form of a letter, because that's, I won't explain why, but we had to write letters. If it wasn't if she didn't call me, then it was letters, and I'll I won't really explain why, but that's how we were communicating if she wasn't calling me. Um, and so, and it was stupid because like we literally were planning on, like, we were gonna live together. I was going to go out of my way to move next year, and she wanted to marry me, and that's great because, this is some girl that I felt like I was supposed to be with for the longest time. And now we're finally getting to the point where, I can, marry her or whatever. But, I don't think that's a thing anymore. I kind of like, I tried to contact her a couple times and I haven't heard from her because I was being apologetic, and it was her birthday last month. And I haven't heard from her, so I'm not sure uh, what's going on. You know, that's probably the last time I heard from her, to be honest with you. I kind of have this weird, I guess it's a fantasy, if you want to call it that, where sometime I uh, end up imagining Miranda showing up at my front door. And I don't know why. I just I just for some reason feel like that is going to happen, but I don't have any explanation for it whatsoever. Um so yeah, I'm other than that, I've just been working overnight um at Home Depot again. We recently just got a raise because of this COVID thing. Um I've been trying to get into streaming on Twitch here and there, but it's mostly casual because I can't seem to like actually grow a decent audience. And in the YouTube thing, I had actually had this YouTube since 2007 or 2008, and I started doing Yu-Gi-Oh card reviews out of all things. And then my intros to those videos were fucking cringe as all get out. So, basically, I've just kind of been all over the place, just kind of doing whatever and playing tons of Magic, playing video games when I feel like it, because these days video games are like, I don't know, like my concentration for video games are not the greatest. It's probably because I have to take epilepsy medication, and that's that's reasonable to think that's the connection there. I just put my book on Amazon recently, and apparently I tried to put my book on Amazon like a long time ago, but it didn't turn out very well. And so the book is Wages of Chaos. If I'll put a link in the description below if you're interested in checking it out. It's on digital and paperback. I got myself a copy of it, and it's just like it basic whatever Amazon gives you to self-publish it. And so yeah, I think that's kind of like a rundown of kind of like where I've come from, and I felt like I just ranted about my uh, life for an hour, but you know that's kind of like the gist of what what all the stuff that I've uh, have had to live through, and nothing crazy other than yeah, like not having a normal life and having epilepsy. Uh, having to take thyroid medication my entire life, but I mean, other than that, it's I don't know, it's kind of whatever. But I just felt like this would be just mostly an introduction of who I am, so you get to know me, I guess, before I continue on with other things. So, yeah, I will leave stuff in the description below, and feel free to comment, like, and subscribe if you like what you heard. Next episode, I'll probably get into more of what this podcast is about. Um, so for now, I will see you guys later.